Today I'm going to be extending the header on a RF board. Now this is an RF board from an older Xbox. This was requested by a customer. He's been trying to extend one of these, and he's messed up quite a few of them doing it. So I thought as I was doing this, I'd make a video and showing you exactly how I do it. Let's put this in my little holder here. Now you can see right here on these points. Now these are the ground points, and this is actually what holds this metal sleeve right there in place. I've already desoldered them because they can be a real pain, and it takes several tries to get those desoldered. But once you get all the solder out of them, you can see, I don't know whether that's going to show up on camera, but you can see that they're free and they can move, and that's how you know that you've got it and they're released. They're free and they move a little bit. Now the rest of these, I still have to get the actual points that carry the signal to the Xbox. Now to do that, what I'm using is a desoldering pump. Now you can buy real fancy versions of this pump, but this is a Radio Shack version and it does great. I've been using this one for a long time. All I have to do is change the tips every now and then. So what you've got to do is depress the bulb like that, and with the bulb depressed, you put it over the point that you're wanting to desolder. Put it over that point. Now you move it around a little bit. That helps transfer the heat. You do that, and that pulls the solder out of that joint. Now let's see if I can get this to show up on camera, and you can see that the solder right there on that point is gone. And if you grab a hold of the pin, you can see that right there. See, it moves freely, so it's not connected anymore. So let's go ahead and get the rest of these. Now every now and then you'll run into one that the solder doesn't come out immediately, and if that happens here, I'll show you what to do. And if it doesn't happen, I'll go ahead and show you anyway. Alright, depress the bulb like this. Put it over the solder point, move it around. Alright, there, we got one right there that the solder didn't come out of the point. So we're just going to leave that one for now and go on to the next one. That one too. Okay, that one's good. Solder came out of that one. I can see the hole clearly. That one's good. That one's good. This one. That one is good. That one's good. Alright, now what I got to do, let me see if I can show you this. Now you can see pretty clearly that that you can see the black around them. Once you give them a little bit of a push, they'll move pretty freely, which means they're completely released. The two that aren't completely released here, there we go, that one's loose. Two that aren't completely released are this one, and the solder just didn't come out of the hole correctly. I want to show you how to deal with that. Alright, get your soldering iron. Alright, and let's put a little bit of solder back in those holes. Alright, solder that one and that one. Alright, now with the solder back in there, you can use the solder pump on them again. If you don't put the solder back, the heat doesn't transfer and the solder pump doesn't work. So depress the bulb. And that one still didn't work. Sometimes you get stubborn ones, and it looks like these two are going to be stubborn. I'm going to try that one more time. If that doesn't work, I'll show you what to do to deal with that. Let's put this back in there. Alright. Alright, we'll try that one more time. Alright, that one worked. Now let's try to get this one. Alright, that one didn't work. So, we're going to leave that one. I'll show you how to deal with that. Alright, now we'll take a little small screwdriver here and make sure all these are still loose, because you can accidentally touch them with the desolder pump and it'll stick them back to the little bit of solder that's remaining in the hole. Like that one right there was still tight. Alright, that one's loose, and that one's loose. Alright, all the soldered points on this header now have been desoldered except for the one. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and pull it out. Now see, what happened was, since that one was still in there, you can see that it's still sticking through the hole. So we're going to get that out using our other soldering iron. Don't try to grab a hold of the little part sticking down here with your fingers, because it will burn you. So let's go ahead and heat the solder up and pull gentle pressure down. You don't want to pull a lot. And there it is. Alright, we can go ahead and put that back into the header where we need it. I usually have a set of tweezers that I use on this kind of work, but I somehow lost them. Once you get it back in there, you can look in the end of the header and make sure they're all lined up the way they should be. Also, when you've pulled on them like that, it's a good idea to press them all down to make sure they're nice and seated. Okay, they're all nice and seated. Okay, now we've got empty holes here where these used to be, so we're going to go ahead and put a little drop of solder on each one of these. Now I'm using flux core solder here, so that's the reason I'm not actually putting flux on the points. Alright, there's a couple of them that don't quite look right, so I'm going to put a little more solder on them. Now these should be good and separated, but I can see that I've not actually, there's not going to be any continuity in between any of these. There's no solder bridge between them, but if you're worried about that, because there's solder mask over the rest of these, so you're only going to hit the part that's buried copper with the solder. If you're worried about that, you can use an ohm meter and test between the points and see if you've got continuity, like in 2 points that are side by side. But yeah, that's how you desolder the header from one of these boards. Now this technique works exactly the same in this kind of board as it does in the Xbox Slim board. So what I'm doing here applies to the Xbox Slim board as well. So, alright, now I'm going to get some ribbon cable, because the customer wants this extended about 10 inches. Alright, I got my ribbon cable. Now, this one uses, I can count them up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I only need 10 strands of wire. So let me go ahead and tear off 10 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alright, now I got my 10 strands of wire. I'm going to start off with this one that's got the little dotted marker on it. That's going to be the one on this far side. So, and it's going to be on the bottom, so I want to bend that one down, the next one up, next one down, up, and so on and so forth. Alright, let's make sure I've got all those right. Down, this one goes a little down. Oh yeah, one of these is going to be a ground as well. That's why it needs 10 instead of just 9 for the points. I didn't explain that. Alright, now that I got them arranged, the ones on the bottom are going to go on first. So we need to shorten the ones on the bottom so they'll line up right. So let's shorten those a little bit, and we'll go ahead and strip all these out and put a little bit of solder on each tip. Now you want to strip out a very little bit of the solder, or a little bit of the insulation. Just about as little as you can strip out and still see the conductor. Because if it's too long, you'll end up having to cut it off anyway. Alright, that's the ones for the bottom. Now we're going to do the ones for the top. Didn't get any on that one. Alright, now we need to go ahead and tin the ends of these with solder. Now you could actually just mount this wire in your little holder here, but I like to do it this way. I think it's easier. I just let a little piece of the solder stick out like that. Alright. Now the top ones. Separate that, or they're going to stick together. And normally I've got a little fan blowing on this area right here that blows that the fumes and smoke away from where I'm doing this, but it makes too much noise to be able to do a video about it. You also want to make sure that you got one of these so you can keep your solder tip nice and clean. Okay, we're going to do the first row here. Now remember we said the one with the little dotted line on it here is going to be our first one on the first pin. I'm going to do that pin without using any tweezers or pliers to hold it in place because it's not necessary on the very first one. It's easy to hold the wire in the position you need it. Make sure your solder tip is nice and clean, or it'll be a real bear to do this. If your solder tip's clean, the connection's made almost instantaneously. Now normally I have a set of tweezers that I use on this, but bend these back so you guys can see that a little better. But I seem to have lost my stainless steel tweezers. Alright, now make sure your solder tip's nice and clean. Alright, didn't get that connection. Didn't think I got it. You always hold it in place after you make your connection. Hold it in place for a second and then give it a little bit of a tug to make sure that you got a good connection. Clean my solder tip because it's starting to oxidize. And as far as soldering irons go, the solder pump I got a cheap one from Radio Shack, but this is the Ayton soldering station, and it's a DC soldering station that gets a lot hotter and is much nicer. The tips don't erode. I've been using this same tip for a long time. So spend a little bit of money and get you a decent soldering station. It'll help you out a lot. Alright, let's go ahead and do the top row now. Now remember, this one over here is going to be a ground. So start off right here. Now remember, we cut the bottom row a little shorter, so the top row should pretty much line up. I usually get it pretty close, but you don't have to fight with it so hard. Okay. That's not a good looking connection. It probably would have worked, but I want to straighten it out. Alright. Alright, that's much better. Alright, this is the last one, and these are the ones that carry the signals to the Xbox motherboard. all those are connected. Now I'm going to do one to ground. That's going to be connected right here. This is a ground. That's where the see, my soldering iron is oxidized again, so it's not making a good heat connection. So clean it off and alright, there we go. Alright, these connections are made. Should not have any trouble with them. Okay, now we got to deal with attaching the other side of this to the header. How I do that? Now, first I hold this in the same position that the header would connect. It connected on the opposite side of the board, so it was underneath, so it's going on that position. So I take this, turn it over like that, bottom side up, attach this in here. Now, remember we had the one with the dotted line going to that pin on the board. So that's how we know we got it, the orientation right for connecting these. Get that straight again. Now these you don't have to cut off one or the other on these. You just want to separate them out and tin them up and down the same way. And I think I made a mistake already. There we go. Okay, now I got 5 up and 5 down. Alright, same thing, we want to strip these out. Now, when you're dealing with something like this though, let me raise the camera just a little bit. When you're dealing with something like this, you can strip out a little bit more of the conductor because you want to actually lay it on these points. So a little bit longer, like 1/8 of an inch, is fine. It's hard to do this stuff when you're looking at it through a viewfinder on a camera. But if I'm not looking through the viewfinder of the camera, I forget that I'm recording this and I end up doing half the stuff off camera. Come on. There we go. Alright, see, I've frayed a couple of these, so we need to straighten them out. We don't want any little whiskers sticking out that's going to bite us later by shorting out. Alright, now we got the same thing we did last time. Again, let me show you the other way to do that. This is something I sometimes do, sometimes don't. It's just okay. We'll do it this way. Alright, we also want to, even though there is a little solder on these, we want to add a little solder to each point. So okay. Alright, like I said before, we got the one with the dotted line. That's going to be the one on the lower side, just like on the board. Make sure your solder tip's clean. Alright, that's a good connection. Now this one's a little trickier because you can accidentally touch the other ones and desolder them, so do the bottom row first. Makes it easy. I see that one has got a little bit of a whisker sticking out that's going to end up causing a short. Okay. That one's good. I think, yeah, I did. I got two of them stuck together. That's bad. The problem I'm having with these two is I put too much solder on the wires. But stuff like that's easily corrected. Look for it. If you're not happy with the way it looked, redo it. Don't take a chance on ending up having a short, 2 weeks after you've put your Xbox together, that you can't find. And this is some pretty difficult soldering. I mean, it's by no means like mounting a surface mounted LED or something like that, but still it's easy to screw up. Alright, now. Okay, none of those are touching and they're all connected. Now we're going to go ahead and do the other ones. These are a little easier because you don't have these top ones to deal with. Okay. Now, got to use the tweezers. You see, I'll give each one a little bit of a tug to make sure that I got it connected correctly. This one's going to be a little tricky to get to. Alright. Now we got one more that are the data carrier to the motherboard, and the other one is going to be a ground. Okay, now let's turn this over because we're going to run and ground it in the same place that we grounded the RF board, which is going to be right here. Now there's already solder on that, and I got a little too much solder on the end of this, so it's going to work out fine. Right there. Okay. Now that's done. Now, even though I've done a ton of these, I've done lots and lots of them, I'm still going to go through and check these with a multimeter. I'll put it in the same position it would have been in if it was still attached to the board like that, and then check point to point from here to here with a multimeter to make sure that I got the connections correct. But that's how that is done. If you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to leave them. I'll answer any questions that I get. I try to answer them all. If I don't get to you, just ask a question again. I'll try to answer it as soon as I can. But there you go. That's how you do a Xbox RF board. And thanks for watching.